Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to FudgeMuppet. My name is Michael.
And I'm Scott, and today you're watching a video we've created on the ideal Fallout 4.
This video contains what we, and hopefully you, want to see in the upcoming Fallout game.
And it will contain insights and ideas from successful YouTubers such as Camelworks Gaming, ESO, Smike, and Grohlvanna. If you're wondering why your favorite Fallout YouTubers' IDs aren't in the video, we most likely tried to contact them and they weren't interested.
Within the video, we have a lot of topics to discuss, and even though we've tried to make them more structured than our ideal Elder Scrolls 6 video, there will be some slight overlaps in the topics. Immersion, incentive, replayability, variation, and fun. These aren't the topics, but they're definitely what Fallout 4 needs plenty of.
Here at FudgeMuppet, we love Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and we've got to say that Bethesda should definitely take some improvements that Obsidian made in New Vegas and implement them into Fallout 4, alongside what was fantastic about Fallout 3. This video will also be inspiring discussion for future videos, so remember to subscribe and leave your ideas in the comments below.
Things such as destructible environments, ghoulification, and a huge elaboration about the leveling system are all on their way for future videos.
You can also go to the description and follow the hyperlinks we have made that will let you navigate to different topics within the video. But for now, sit back and prepare yourself for the ideal Fallout 4.
First and foremost, let's discuss the setting where the entire game is going to take place.
Recent rumors and hoaxes would have us believe that Fallout 4 will be set in Boston, Massachusetts, which is simply known as the Commonwealth in Fallout lore. Whether Boston truly is the setting or not, it still is an exciting idea. One of the reasons we're interested in Boston is the environment. In the winter months, Boston experiences snow. It gets cold. This would be a refreshing change from the arid Mojave wasteland of Fallout New Vegas and the gloomy, barren ruins of Fallout 3.
There would be lots of potential for unique mutated creatures like a mutated moose that wildly charges at you, or a group of mutated raccoons seen rummaging through the trash, but when they are disturbed they become violent. There could be cyborg dogs or genetically modified creatures like the Night Stalkers in New Vegas. Additionally, I have one word for you: androids. Boston is home to the mysterious faction known as the Institute. The Institute possesses highly advanced technology and technological skills, resulting in the creation of true artificial intelligence, and they are capable of creating these androids. This would have some interesting applications to gameplay, quest lines, and choices. Imagine having an android companion who is self-aware and constantly commenting and observing your actions in an attempt to understand what it would be like to be human.
Now let's talk timeline. Ideally, we hope that it will not be set long after Fallout 3, that is, if it were set in Boston, Massachusetts. If it was set 5 years after Fallout 3, for instance, it would be plausible that rumors like Three Dog returning could be true. Personally, we think this is awesome. Characters from Fallout 3 making appearances in Fallout 4 would be really cool and get you all nostalgic. While not vital to the ideal Fallout 4, we still think it's nice having Three Dog playing tunes on the radio, Dr. Zimmer back in the Commonwealth researching, and unique characters like the Russian partier Dukov. Now, Boston may not be the actual setting of Fallout 4, so let's discuss some of the features that we would like to see regarding atmosphere, terrain, and biomes. Fallout 3 had a great atmosphere, a dark, gloomy hopelessness. Fallout New Vegas had a great atmosphere, an arid wasteland filled with emerging civilizations. The problem with both is that it becomes repetitive. After thousands of hours that we have sunk into Fallout New Vegas, I am bored of the desert. Remember how boring the metro tunnels of Fallout 3 were after the 50th time you had gone through them?
We feel that there should be a good amount of environment and terrain variation. Snowy mountains and humid swamps, urban ruins and dense irradiated forests, sandy beaches and expansive farmland. Different biomes and atmospheres would keep the game exciting and fresh. Sick of hanging out in the city ruins? Go visit the tribal village in the mountains.
Verticality is another aspect that we like in our games. It adds diversity of environment and more fun to exploration. Imagine climbing a worn skyscraper in Boston. You walk out the door on the 7th level to an outer exposed area because the walls and windows are ruined. The wind is strong. You pull out your binoculars and see a group of raiders attack a group of wastelanders, or a deathclaw hunting a mole rat on the ground.
This verticality just makes for a more open, realistic environment, instead of having all these unclimbable skyscrapers existing around the place.
A small but pertinent point we would like to add is more simulation quests or quests of other types that reveal lore about the Great War. Similar to Operation Anchorage, it was cool to see how the war in Alaska went down. We would like to see more of these types of quests, where a focus is understanding of the Great War.
For example, you may find a simulation pod in a random high-tech facility you were exploring, and a story of a sleeper agent assassinating a general plays out, which, upon completion, reveals the location of a super advanced power armor hidden in another facility. Abundance of these high-tech facilities would make lots of sense in Boston, the home of a high-tech organization, the Institute.
As we mentioned, we definitely want a great variety of areas, but we aren't saying we want an environment that is random and nonsensical. The variety of environments has to work within the confinement of the setting. For example, no deserts in Massachusetts, but Massachusetts would have a mix of environments including the city of Boston, the rolling Berkshire Mountains which surround the Connecticut River Valley, rural hill towns, the sandy beaches of the south coast, and the rocky shorelines of the northern coast. Imagine all those environments but irradiated, and you have one diverse game map, encouraging exploration and discovery. How cool would it be to find a runaway android hiding inside a shack in the Berkshires?
We also want to see more monuments, more landmarks, more wow I've been there in real life moments. Boston would have the Bunker Hill Monument, beautiful churches like the Church of the Covenant would also be around, though granted they would be at the very least worn down or destroyed.
Regarding atmospheres, let's have some really creepy ones, the type that make your skin crawl. Remember Andale in Fallout 3? The town that was secretly full of incestuous cannibals. That was dark as night, and we want to see more of these unsettling occurrences. Smike said that he would love to see more handcrafted dungeons. Areas in New Vegas like Hoover Dam had half a dozen duplicates of the same room with slightly different enemy setups to make it feel pseudo-dynamic. Quite simply, Bethesda can do better, and they have shown this with how Skyrim used the clutter-based level design concept. Smike would love to see Bethesda put more of this into action in Fallout 4.
Another tiny point we would like to add to this huge wish list is more songs, a larger soundtrack basically so you don't get bored of hearing Blue Moon for the billionth time on the radio. To summarize, different environments and atmospheres incentivize exploration, keep you interested, and prevent the game from becoming repetitive.
Moving on to something that really gives Fallout games a unique flavor, the combat. Basic things such as more swinging patterns and unarmed movements should be added.
It was also incredibly cool to unlock unique unarmed abilities, and there should be even more unique abilities in Fallout 4. Imagine if you could learn new power attacks with long melee weapons that could hit multiple enemies in one swipe, or if you could learn a silent unarmed sneak attack that let you twist and break your enemy's neck, Hollywood movie style. You could call that unrealistic, but hey, one of the best things about Fallout is that it's wacky, and kills like that would fit in beautifully.
Fallout's gunplay and weapon combat in general have always been a little bit clunky, and many people believe this gives Fallout a unique feel. We also enjoyed the clunky feel of Fallout combat, however, it's been 7 years since Fallout 3, and 5 since New Vegas, and we definitely think this clunkiness should be a lot smoother. Especially because of next-gen and current-day PC capabilities, combat should flow with smooth reloads and more accurate aiming.
Basically, you don't want to just be playing as a gun that pans across the screen.
We've also taken Fallout's VAT system that lets you freeze time and select body parts of enemies to fire or swing at into account. VATs should definitely remain in the next Fallout game, and one could suggest that if gunplay was made too fluid, there would be less incentive to use VATs.
However, we believe this isn't the case. If you've played enough Fallout, especially in New Vegas where you're finally given iron sights, you can play through the entire game without VATs and still easily aim and kill enemies. VATs also gives you the ability to have cinematic kills, which as we said we want more of because they're very satisfying. VATs also gives you the ability to have cinematic kills, which as we said we want more of because they're very satisfying, and VATs will always be useful because it lets you pause the game. Imagine if you could use VATs in a game like Battlefield or Halo, it would still be very convenient, especially for enemies that are just about to run out of your view or are moving too fast. Now you've also got to consider that this is an RPG, and we definitely don't want just Battlefield copy-pasted into Fallout. Fallout's amazing RPG elements would ensure combat isn't made too easy because you have things like attributes and skills that affect your weapon accuracy and effectiveness.
Therefore, making the game smoother doesn't necessarily mean it's easier, and therefore upgraded combat is definitely something we would like to see.
Fallout combat is also known for its over-dramatized gore, and this should definitely stay in the game alongside the Bloody Mess perk for those who want even more. Finishes in VATs should also be introduced if a kill is registered. Imagine pulling someone's arm off with a power fist for a cinematic kill.
Especially with melee combat, VATs should include these cinematic kills the same way it would follow a bullet for gunfire. We definitely want this cinematic touch seen more in Fallout 4 because otherwise some kills can look a bit awkward and break the atmosphere. For example, with stealth melee characters, your VATS kills made your character become a master of chopping people's legs off, when really it'd be nice if you could impale them from behind or slit their throat.
On the topic of explosives, they've done a pretty good job already, but perhaps they could make the aiming better, otherwise it's not too shabby.
Now for the next topic regarding combat in our ideal Fallout 4,
Dual wielding.
here is how we can see it working. For starters, only one-handed weapons can be dual wielded. That's a given. The penalties to balance out the fact you have double damage output would be A, you can't look down iron sights, B, more gun spread, less accuracy, and C, when wielding a gun and a knife or other one-handed melee weapons, you can't block.
Also, aiming with two hands in real life is hard. It requires a great amount of dexterity, which is why we think there should be an agility factor. Your level of agility should have direct effects on your ability to dual wield. For example, 10 agility would allow you to dual wield with almost no problem, whereas 1 agility would leave you incredibly ineffective. So if you were to make a dual wielding character, you would have to consider your agility level. It would be an attribute that you would have incentive to invest in.
On that point, the next topic for discussion is incentive. And this is one of the topics that are woven into every topic we talk about.
This isn't everything on incentive, but here's some delicious food for thought.
Fallout 4 needs to make unique weapons hard to get and very powerful, and there needs to be more rewarding enemies and bosses that are really hard to defeat to make the player feel good.
Whilst it has been very satisfying to defeat some enemies in Fallout, more incentive can be added if they are found deep in a cavern and guarding a unique weapon of great power. This also gives more incentive to explore absolutely everything, as you never know what you will stumble across. Of course, more incentive to use unique weapons should also exist. Not all the time, but sometimes you could just buy the best weapons and their unique versions would be a little less effective and easier to access. Defeating such boss-like enemies could also give you large amounts of XP and could even be part of a side quest that was made out to be an easy errand.
Imagine going to retrieve a child's toy and finding yourself face to face with a wacky mutated wild turkey that is trying to eat you alive, and then after you kill it you find that it has swallowed the most powerful laser cannon in the game. Because we also want a variety of terrain and biomes in the game, this means that the variety of enemies and unique, often wacky circumstances is huge.
With this in mind, we want more random encounters to occur. Fallout New Vegas lacked random encounters, whereas Fallout 3 had various random encounters, many of them serving as recognition of your choices during quests. Random events like seeing cannibals hunting their prey or slavers carting their slaves off to Paradise Falls was amazing, and we hope these kinds of events occur in Fallout 4.
Imagine if you came across a game of Russian roulette going down between two raiders, or a strong wastelander doing chin-ups. We love these random events, and they add flavor and variety to the game, further incentivizing exploration, which is one of the coolest parts of an open world game. One of the ideas we would like to see is quests that begin at certain time intervals. For instance, having quests that become available after the first month of game time has passed. So you play Fallout 4 for a while, you think you have completed all the quests in a town, but then it clocks over to a month of game time passed and a quest pops up, surprising you with even more to do in the late game. This once again incentivizes exploration and revisiting locations to truly take in and experience all the game has to offer.
This additional type of quest system would also be perfect if there were dynamic weather and seasons, having certain quests available only in certain seasonal periods. We'll talk about this later in the video.
We'll also keep mentioning how awesome more incentive is throughout the video, but for now, let's move on to some Fallout 4 mechanics. First off, your special attributes, that is strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. Attributes are a great part of Fallout's gameplay and should definitely stay. It's fantastic for roleplaying because you can start out with a character that has a backstory and abilities to suit their past.
For example, if you wanted to play as a mad scientist, you could start out with high intelligence, high perception, and low strength. By absolutely no means do we want a dumbed down version or removal of the special attribute system.
If Fallout 4 were to scrap attributes, we will cry. A lot.
Attributes could be taken even further to have a large impact on gameplay. For example, it was great to see how strength impacted weapon wielding. If you tried to hold a big gun with one strength, it was very hard to aim. Agility was meant to make you faster, but it actually didn't, so in Fallout 4 it definitely should.
People can then create agile characters who are able to attack and run faster. Perception should create, say, an increased chance of seeing enemies who are using stealth boys, and also if there were sand or snowstorms or some sort of extreme weather effects, perhaps it would be easier for you to see. This would of course be added upon what we already have, such as seeing enemies come up on the compass. Strength could also increase limb damage on all melee and unarmed attacks that you do, as well as just increasing normal damage.
If a sprinting feature was added, which would make a lot of sense, endurance could determine the quantity of stamina you have, allowing you to sprint for longer, and perhaps having agility determine sprint speed.
Additionally, power attacks with melee weapons or unarmed while causing more damage could drain stamina.
Scott and I would also like more unique options in the game, mainly during conversation, which are based off these attributes and also off skills. These make you feel like you live in a more reactive and dynamic world, and this was shown in New Vegas.
Fallout 3 had it too, but not as much. And as we keep saying in the video, the ideal Fallout 4 needs to have more of this fun, sensational immersion.
Also, unlike Fallout 3, these skill or attribute checks shouldn't have their success based off a percentage.
As cool as it was, it did allow for people to save the game beforehand and exploit the system entirely. Having more of these choices makes you feel more distinguished in the game, so that who you are affects what happens to you. It becomes more recognized by the world that you are, for example, really strong, and that gives you more of an identity.
This is a massive help for role-playing, and even low intelligence should at some point help you. Imagine you have to defeat a powerful raging simpleton who wields a giant battle axe, but because he sees you as one of his kind, he will simply give you his weapon for having 2 intelligence instead of you having to fight him. The whole idea with all these skills and attribute checks is to have more replayability. Replayability meaning playing throughout Fallout 4 multiple times with different characters. Having all these unique options and outcomes means that every time you play Fallout 4, you would be given a personalized experience that changes depending on how you've built your character.
You could also potentially have dual speech checks, involving 2 attributes, 2 skills, or 1 of each, maybe even involving karma. So imagine a speech option that needs 8 strength and 9 endurance in order to convince someone that you can tear their head off with your bare hands, which then results in them cowering and staying out of your way. Evil Karma and Science 80 could let you decide to rewire an android to make him an assassin.
The opportunities are endless, and the main reason for this idea is to tailor the game to your character. You play a smart character who excels at melee weapons, that would be recognized with a 70 melee weapons and 8 intelligence speech check when discussing an antique sword origin with an NPC.
In terms of more visual mechanics, the player's view should become more realistic and additional animations should occur during gameplay. You should be able to look down and see your feet on the ground. Modders have been doing this for ages. It's time to finally see my legs with my own eyes. Animations such as vomiting due to radiation should happen. Radiation itself should induce physically visible reactions, and radiation sickness should be more threatening stats and health-wise. Smike also wanted to note that he would like to see animations that make your character look like he or she is actually walking on the ground, rather than walking on sunshine. He doesn't want your player character sliding over the terrain like that we've seen in the previous games, and we at FudgeMuppet could not agree more.
Continuing with visual effects, perhaps healing using hotkeys could show animations similar to Far Cry, so you actually see yourself inject a stim pack, or if your arm has been shot, you actually pull out the bullet and wrap the wound in a bandage. Of course, you could just skip the animation using your Pip-Boy if you were in a tight situation, however if not, it would be cool to actually see you perform crucial actions in the middle of combat. And here's Camelworks' take on the subject.
Greetings, Wastelanders, it is I, Camel, of Camelworks. Building off the last point, it would also be very cool and neat to see some visual effects on your character after battle. For example, if you just came out of a fist fight, if you had bruising on your face or a black eye, some bleeding, bloody knuckles. If you have just been in a melee fight, to have cuts and bruises and some bleeding. After a gunfight, to have bullet wounds and holes in your clothing. After being hit with explosives, to have bleeding sections where you can still see fragments of shrapnel stuck into your character's body. However, we do need a symbiotic relationship between your character's injuries and your apparel. By this, what I mean is that your armor should have a physical representation depending on its current condition. For example, if your armor is on 5% condition, it should look near broken. A missing pauldron, torn bits, bloodstains, tatters, where fragments from explosives have flown into your character. Both of these hand-in-hand dynamics would be a great addition, allowing you to truly immerse yourself and physically see the damage you have undertaken. Just think about it, how awesome that would be. If you were hit with an energy weapon, and you could physically see a plasma burn mark on your clothing, or on your bare skin. I think it's safe to say that we can all agree that these physical, moment-appropriate changes to your character are a very welcome and exciting addition that we can hope to see in Fallout 4. That is all from me. I've been Camel from Camelworks, and back to the Muppets.
Moving on, perhaps wearing some high-tech visors and helmets could even change the display on screen to make you feel like you're some sort of Iron Man. For some people, this could also incentivize showing the character's face when you're not in combat, which is always cool, and then hotkeying your helmet on when you run into battle.
Things like goggles could also have more use, so if there was some kind of vision blurring storm, you could put on goggles to see normally. These animations could also extend to drinking water from your trusty Vault 13 canteen, and maybe even using chems. But here in Australia, they'll probably think it's naughty.
While on the topic of chems and drugs, it'd be dope, haha, to see some visual effects while under the influence of chems. If you hit up the jet, it would be awesome to hear your heartbeat going faster, to hear heavy, fast breathing, and have the color of your screen change and the edges become blurred. Something also regarding mechanics which is interesting is the Pip-Boy itself. The inventory system currently used is fine, however the Pip-Boy can look a bit chunky and out of place for some characters. For example, if you're trying to play as a tribal. We definitely want to keep the Pip-Boy as it is a Fallout icon. It makes the menu feel more immersive than a traditional menu system, and also because it's used to calculate VATs. But if you want to be nitpicky, perhaps there could be a slightly smaller, more streamlined and less standout Pip-Boy in the next Fallout game.
The Pip-Boy was also used for fast travel, and this was great. Though on the topic of travel, why not add modes of transport other than walking? Imagine Mad Max-style motorbikes or cars maintained and upgraded by your repair skill. I mean, if vertibirds exist and are in use, it's really not hard to believe that a car could be constructed and used. Maybe even live mounts, like a horse or something.
The next mechanic we're talking about is hardcore mode, and this is certainly something that should remain in Fallout 4. It would feel so immersive with all the new animations and of course new features.
While not for most people's first playthrough, hardcore mode is Fallout's option for true survivalists, and therefore if you're wanting to choose it, a struggle to survive is what you should get. You could be trekking through Boston carrying water from a contaminated creek to a campfire just so you can get rid of the rads, in order to stay healthy and hydrated.
Scott and I envision a hardcore mode that requires different equipment and unique mechanics. Picture fleeing through the wasteland as your health slowly lowers due to a bleed damage mechanic, until of course you can find yourself a bandage to stay alive. If potentially changing seasons and therefore climates were a part of Fallout 4, hardcore mode would have to account for this and maybe include extra factors such as body temperature and exposure.
Karma has always been a part of the Fallout series, but we believe it might not be needed. Not that it is currently disrupting the game, and as we said, it could be integrated into conversation checks, but we just believe it may actually not be necessary. And here's why. The world isn't black and white. You see, there are many shades of grey, 50 shades to be exact. For example, you are presented with a choice: kill your spouse and child, or nuke a town. When presented with a choice like that, how is either good or bad, especially in the wasteland where survival comes above all else? Do you get karma points for murdering your spouse and child but saving a town? Of course not, you just murdered your family. We think that it is far more organic when there is no strict morality system. There should be choice, and there should be consequence.
Additionally, being a strictly good or bad character guides you towards making every good guy decision, but what if your good guy needs to do an evil act for the greater good? We think that modern character development is far more advanced than the binary opposition of good and evil. For example, Boone in Fallout New Vegas was and generally is a good guy. He wants security and freedom and good to prevail, just like many others. Yet, he decided to kill his wife so that she would not become a Legion slave, granted that it was an act of mercy. He still shot his wife, his love, an act most would deem bad. Remember, we aren't debating what is good and what is evil, we are simply pointing out that karma is perhaps not a necessary function, and most would agree that the good-evil binary system is nowhere near as interesting as choices based upon personal morals rather than adhering to a universal moral code.
Last point of mechanics, I've heard some people wish for hyper-realistic combat, like one headshot equals a kill. Look, Fallout is an RPG, it works off stats, damage outputs, and damage thresholds. If you were to make it one headshot, one kill, there is 0 point in investing in anything but highly accurate weak weapons. There is no point in upping your gun skill, because any noob with a decent aim can still instant kill. No instant kills, please. I am sure most would agree. Another little thing I'd like to talk about is difficulty.
We believe they should make the enemy AI smarter and more tactical depending on the difficulty setting rather than boosting their health. It does feel silly when you have to shoot a raider 50 times to kill him when he can simply pop you in a shot or two.
Enabling them to play on a higher difficulty without feeling like their bullets have the punch of wet toilet paper. It is best to find balance. You should be able to do a solid amount of damage without a one-shot, one-kill system, and have difficulty determine the amount of damage you can take and the intelligence of enemies' tactics.
This system would prevent every enemy being a bullet sponge on high difficulty, which at least for us breaks immersion, but additionally prevents Fallout from turning into a super realistic COD Apocalypse Edition, which would negatively affect Fallout's core gameplay.
Moving on to one of the coolest features of RPGs, at least in our opinion, customization.
First off, let's get physical and talk about the customization of your character, your avatar, the character you control, or whatever you want to call it. Customization of the body and face needs a vast improvement on the previous games. We want to be able to make a face that doesn't look at best like a really attractive fish.
We want to make real-looking people, so more extensive customization options for the face, but most of all the body, factors like height, body fat, muscle, width of hips, shoulders, shape of bone frame. All this needs to be included. Why, you say? Because we like playing Barbie for hours in the customization screen, and we think that varying features adds more character. Think of when you're being described a character in a book. The tall, muscular, scowling bouncer. Those three physical characteristics already gave you a good idea of what the person is like. It makes him stand out as a character, and that's what we want to see in both our playable character and NPCs. When you walk into a bustling trade town, we want you to see the fat mayor, his tall bodyguard, and his old frail father.
It looks silly when a malnourished wastelander begging for water looks like he's just walked out of the gym with a sick pump. Even if a particular NPC doesn't say anything interesting, he immediately has more character if he is physically distinguished from the other NPCs. Besides NPCs, extensive customization of your own character is a massive advantage for roleplaying.
When you create your character with 10 strength and 10 endurance, you would expect him to be 6'5" and built like a brick shithouse. But in previous games, you were the same size as everyone else. Want to make your 5'6" character who is super stealthy? Now you would be able to. More customization equals more fun, plus more replayability.
Another interesting part of customization is changeable details. By this we mean hair, makeup, tattoos, and things of that nature. These particular features should also be customizable after the initial character creation. Go to the barber and get a haircut, grow a beard, or get a tattoo after enlisting in an army or joining a gang.
Customization like this adds to your character's identity. Imagine if in Fallout New Vegas you could give your NCR First Recon character a tattoo of the NCR bear. It just adds more variety to NPCs in your playable character. Another cool customization feature would be the visual representations of cybernetics or implants. For instance, you could pick a trait called Cyborg, which actually gives you a robotic arm and eye, along with +2 strength and perception, while you have a 20% weakness to EMP, laser, and plasma weapons. Also being able to see glowing orange or red in the center of your pupil when you get the perception implant, or wires in your arm when you get the strength implant.
This would be great if Fallout 4 was set in Boston, where there is highly advanced factions who could apply this technology. The next part of customization that needs to be addressed is weapons and armor. Upgrades would be fantastic. In Fallout New Vegas, when you upgrade your weapon with mods, it usually has a physical change.
Both Michael and I would like to see physical effects that come from upgrading your armor. For example, you have leather armor, and then upgrade it with metal plating, which grants a 35% resistance to bladed melee weapons. Rather than just have a 35% resistance added, it would be awesome to see a physical representation showing metal plates fastened onto the armor.
Upgrades to your armor would be a great addition and once again allow you to personalize your character. This would also make other NPCs stand out with identical standard armor types. For example, a squad of Brotherhood of Steel paladins all wearing full power armor including the helmet. All of them could have unique personalities and backstories, but they all look the exact same. It would be much cooler if, say, one had a rag-like hood and cloak as he wielded his Gauss rifle. Another had a toolkit fastened to his leg, which would provide 10+ to the repair skill. Armor upgrades would provide both unique looks and in-game benefits like bonuses to resistances and skills or attributes.
Additionally, we would like to see more armor and clothing options. Not that there weren't a good amount in previous games, but as far as we're concerned, when it comes to customization, more is always better. Oh, and better undergarments. Stripping a tribal of their armor to see that they're wearing modern grey shirts and shorts was a little silly. Just have undergarments like Skyrim or something. I'm not a pervert, I swear. It was one time. Just a little peek.
As far as weapons are concerned, Fallout New Vegas was getting on the right track. Fallout New Vegas had a larger range of weapons than Fallout 3, but an even larger variety would always be a good thing, especially for energy weapons. More weapon modifications like silencers, extended magazines, and scopes. This and more is what we want.
Additionally, there's always the possibility of cosmetic decorations, but it's not like someone trying to survive in the wasteland is too concerned with acquiring the Digital Tiger Echelon Mark 6 camo paint. Another thing that we would like to have that Fallout New Vegas was lacking is Fallout 3's wacky craftable weapons. Remember the rocket launcher that allowed you to use tin cans and junk as ammunition, or the railway rifle that uses spikes as ammo?
Imagine the potential of Fallout 4, a harpoon gun made with a vacuum cleaner, or a fire extinguisher made into a flamethrower. These funny, wacky combinations would be awesome. After all, the Fallout franchise really is known for little bits of wackiness. Increasing the crafting potential in Fallout is something that YouTuber ESO had discussed with us. He wanted to be able to mod weapons with, and I quote, literally anything and use it to my advantage.
We totally agree with this, as long as it makes sense physics-wise. For example, putting a frying pan on a grenade is hilarious, but sort of senseless. But strapping a knife to a gun with duct tape to increase melee damage would be amazing. Another thing ESO wanted was more elaborate traps in the game like those seen in Skyrim. These were really fun, especially those that you could use to your advantage, and we want to take this even further by adding more recipes for crafting your own intricate traps to use against enemies. Ultimately, Fallout 4 would benefit from more customization of your character and NPCs to help role-playing and identity, as well as a bigger variety of weapons and armor, along with many more cosmetic and mechanic-based enhancements like mods and upgrades. You can find a link to ESO's channel in the description.
Now let's talk about NPCs and companions. Like we and most other people would say, Fallout 4 would definitely benefit from more voice actors. Good, got that one out of the way, now to the meaty stuff. We would like more NPCs where it makes sense. Areas of Freeside in New Vegas were largely unpopulated, and it is supposed to be the slummy area of one of the biggest tourist attracting cities. More NPCs added to Freeside, for example, would have expanded the potential for atmosphere creation. Granted, there are a few drug addicts on the ground, but imagine you walk into Freeside and see a traveler petting his tamed Yao Guai, a group of 5 thugs extorting a business, an old woman telling fortunes for caps, an active Protectron with no legs being pushed around in a shopping cart.
All of this at first sight would create atmosphere and immerse you in their current location. Another thing, more randomly encountered NPCs that are non-hostile should pass by and have things to say to you. A trader mentioning things like, stay away from this area, it's filled with mutants, for instance. This asset to gameplay is used to make players aware of interesting places and encourage exploration of them. Even just traveling NPCs that you can have a conversation with, like an old traveling ghoul talking about past events, revealing fascinating lore to you.
Companions in New Vegas were excellent. They had their own motivations, code of ethics, and they developed with you. They would change and be affected by your decisions. This is great, and we want more of it, and improved versions of it.
Think quality over quantity. We don't want what Skyrim had, tons of companions that were hollow as a log.
We'd also like to briefly mention that we enjoyed the companion system of New Vegas where you could have one humanoid companion and a non-humanoid companion like Rex or Eddie. It would be nice to see these companions interact and acknowledge each other, as well as interact with other NPCs. Perhaps they could even offer you their advice on your particular choices or the quest you're about to take on.
Ultimately, we want a small amount of meaningful, thought-out companions. They should pull you up and criticize you on your actions, and also be shaped by your opinions unless you're suggesting the fundamental opposites of what they believe in. For example, an android companion in Fallout 4, if it were set in Boston, Massachusetts, could be a complete blank slate. You get him as a companion, you spend time with him in the wasteland, he ponders on your actions and deduces how he should act based upon your behavior. You have been killing anyone that opposes you, be that raiders, Brotherhood of Steel, or tribals. The android companion observes this and learns that this is an acceptable behavior, since you, his most trusted friend, is indirectly teaching him so. Then he may get perks or increases to his combat efficiency, which all seems good, but like we will be talking about next, actions have consequences. So in a mission that you need to resolve diplomatically, your android companion gets trigger happy and kills the opposition, compromising the mission. Later on, you would have various options on how to deal with the aftermath. As an example, you try to disapprove, but then the android companion argues back that this is how you, the player character, acts. The android companion would have depth, development, and also act as a self-reflective device on your choices.
The android is an example of an interesting, multifaceted, in-depth and self-thinking character that we would like to see in all the companions throughout Fallout 4. Additionally, one last thing I would like to add is a larger variety of moral stances in companions. More evil-oriented characters. If you tried to play Legion with companions, it was really hard not to piss them off.
Oh, and also romance options are nice. Get that booty.
Our next topic is factions, plotlines, choices, and consequences. First off, let's begin with the easy one, so factions. Fallout 3 in terms of factions was very limited. You're always Brotherhood of Steel fighting the Enclave, typical good versus evil. Fallout New Vegas definitely made a big improvement in this regard, offering 4 main plotline factions, along with multiple smaller factions which all had their own unique ideologies, ethics, pros, and cons. While some factions like Caesar's Legion were presented as typically evil, they had some redeeming factors such as protection and security of their lands, freedom from corruption, and a united people.
This dynamic view of factions, rather than pasting one faction the good guy and the opposing faction the bad guy, is far better, encouraging you, the player, to become attached or join a faction because of their ideals rather than because they're the good guys.
Fallout New Vegas had a nice variety of factions including the NCR, Caesar's Legion, Brotherhood of Steel, Great Khans, and Followers of the Apocalypse to name a few. We hope Fallout 4 follows this path and includes a large variety of factions that have differing cultures, ideals, and political stances. One of the things we would have wished for in New Vegas was the ability to actually become a member of more of these factions like the Great Khans. So in Fallout 4, we're hoping we'll be able to join these smaller factions and have different benefits, quests, and reputations associated with it. Imagine playing your evil jet-addicted raider character that would actually be able to join a raider gang, perhaps eventually even becoming the leader. Perhaps join an organization of bounty hunters who give you bounties to hunt raiders and criminals. Speaking of bounty hunters, Grohlvanna has expressed to us his wishes for a bounty hunting guild. Grohlvanna likes the idea of being able to track down and capture people, dead or alive. We think this would be a neat idea. Imagine being able to use electronic collars similar to the slave collars as seen in Fallout 3 to capture bounties. If Fallout 4 were set in Boston, you could be a bounty hunter working for the Institute, capturing runaway androids.
There could even be a faction of untouched vault dwellers who have never been exposed to the wasteland, and at first they treat you like a god, believing you to be the holy messiah who survived the destruction of the Great War. This gives you the option to tell them the truth and reveal to them the wasteland, maybe encouraging trade with other towns, or you could let them believe this lie, having them treat you like a god, allowing you to reign over the vault whilst receiving resources and weapons of the old world from them.
Grohlvanna also liked the ideas of guilds like Skyrim, which are essentially factions except they're usually based off professions rather than ideals. In these organizations you could ascend the ranks to eventually become the leader. Now this could be very interesting. Assassin organizations or mercenary companies could be examples of this. Now, choices and consequences are one of the most interesting and important factors of an RPG like Fallout.
First off, let's hear what Smike had to say on the topic. I quote, "One of the awesome things about Fallout 3 is the option to nuke one of the main cities. That made you feel like your actions had consequence. If they could push that concept further, it would be super awesome. Maybe something like in Morrowind, where if you kill an NPC, you enter the point of no return, where you can go full retard and literally kill any NPC. And of course, here at FudgeMuppet, we absolutely agree with him.
We think everyone could universally agree that having your actions cause a tangible effect on the world is a good thing. So if you are a member of a raider gang and you go on a quest to destroy a town, once the town is cleared and taken, raider folk should flock in. Maybe the general store is turned into a drug lab, or a respectable bar turned into a brothel. These tangible effects immerse the player and make you feel accomplished as you made this happen.
If you could convince a group of tribals to cooperate with a group of scientists, that could then flourish into a relationship where the scientists bring medicine, education, and agriculture, and the tribesmen bring muscle and manpower. This cooperation could lead to the creation of a small farming town, which before your intervention was a group of tribals and scientists at odds. Choice is the other part of consequence. It is your choices that lead to creating a consequence, therefore an effect on the world. Choice is an awesome device for storytelling and development of your character, as well as other NPCs or companions' development. So naturally, Michael and I believe more choice is sensational. Fallout 4 should have more options in regards to the way quests are undertaken. Diplomatic agreements, loud and explosive assault, assassinating key figures, framing by planting evidence. All these should be possible ways of reaching the end goal of the same quest. Additionally, there should be even more choice with plotline factions. Like I said before, Fallout 3 had very little, New Vegas had 4 options, 2 of which were very similar.
It would be awesome to see even more potential alliances that can be of political significance. Imagine if you could unite a bunch of smaller tribes like Caesar did and become the leader of your own united faction, then eventually lead them to victory in the plotline. Or what if you could help a secret society assassinate the leaders of larger factions so that they can manipulate the political scene to their own likings? Though, this also depends on whether or not factions are as relevant to the player character's story. It may be a more personal storyline like Fallout 3, perhaps a tale of revenge, survival, or ambition.
One of the biggest things we want, considering the environment, choice, consequences, and quests, is that they are all dynamic. Your choices should have an impact upon factions, towns, environments, and the people within them. For example, you kill the entire population of a Brahmin farm that supplies a certain town. That town now has less stock, and you could even see people having to leave the town in seek of better places. The population of the town would become lower, more random crimes and violence could occur because of the lack of food sources.
It would be hard to pull this off in a game along with so much of all the other stuff we've mentioned, but remember, this is our ideal Fallout 4. One final point on plot is that the game should not actually end. You should be able to continue playing your character after the ending, perhaps even having dynamic features like the results of your choices in the story having an effect on the wasteland. Entirely wiped out factions and flourishing towns because of your actions.
Another one of you wasteland assholes.
Next up, we've got progression. This includes leveling up, skills, traits, and perks. A super awesome thing seen in Fallout was the amount of traits added by the DLC in Fallout New Vegas. In Fallout 4, it would be great to start with a choice of around 10 to 20 traits in the vanilla game. This just adds even more to role-playing. We need more traits with strong pros and cons, like Four Eyes, which was great for characters with glasses. Imagine having a trait called Mind Over Matter, which reduced all your attributes except intelligence by 1, or maybe even 2, and in return gave you 4 additional skill points to allocate every time you level up.
Secondly, we'd like to say that Fallout's leveling system, where you allocate skill points during each level up instead of gaining skill points for using each skill, is superior for a Fallout game. We don't want Skyrim's leveling system for Fallout 4, and here's why. A small reason is that with a Skyrim system for Fallout, skills such as speech, science, and survival would definitely feel forced as level by doing skills. Especially for science, imagine that the only way to get your science up was by hacking computers. There's not really enough in Fallout games, and by the time you're good at it, you've already missed a whole bunch of quest-related computers that have high science requirements and high rewards. Furthermore, if there was the usual level cap of 20 or 30, it would also mean that simply experimenting with other skills and weapons would ruin your character's potential to get the most out of the skills they actually planned on using.
If they tried to fix this by encompassing no level cap or a very high level cap like Skyrim has, they would force you to master every skill in the game because that would be the only way to get all the perks and make the most out of your character. This would then ruin replayability, immersion and roleplaying as you're forced to use the skills your character doesn't need or care about, and the incentive to test new skills within a second, third or 50th playthrough disappears.
For example, after your first playthrough, you would have already sat there with your unarmed monk character, shooting Brahmin with a pistol for 2 hours to level the gun skill you don't even use, to then get a new perk that has nothing to do with guns.
Grinding by killing enemies over and over is one of the most criticized features of an MMO. So why is it that when you translate this same repetitive grinding into a single-player RPG, people all of a sudden glorify it as the holy grail of immersion and leveling systems? Would you really be telling the truth if you said you had fun while casting Muffle 1,000 times in Skyrim, so you could reach the level cap on your Orc Warrior that never practically uses magic?
If you've watched our channel before, you'd know that we absolutely love Skyrim, but Fallout is Fallout and Skyrim is Skyrim. We have no problem with grinding for XP in Skyrim most of the time, but in Fallout you receive XP for quests and kills, and no matter how you would complete each of these tasks, you would still level up. If you take this away from the Fallout franchise, as we said, you are forced into using skills you may not like. They may not even fit your character, or whatever the case may be.
A level by doing system means that you must use your plasma rifle with a 15 energy weapon skill, rather than your anti-material rifle with your 100 gun skill, in order to get more XP to level up and get the higher level perk you want for guns.
To further show complications with using this level by doing Skyrim leveling system, if it were adopted completely, they could remove level reliant perks. It could be completely like Skyrim. Perks can be unlocked at any time as long as you have the skill requirements for them. But yet again, another issue comes up, and that is, what about the non-skill perks?
What happens to the immersive perks like cannibal and weapon handling? Where do perks based upon attributes fit in? Surely you don't want the removal of attributes? The immersion granted by the level by doing system is not worth the immersion lost by the destruction of attributes and unique perks.
As I said earlier, Fallout is its own franchise. Don't worry about making Fallout 4 Skyrim with guns and no magic. The two systems are amazing in their own right, but they don't blend well without compromising the core values of each other and the ideal Fallout 4. At first, we did ponder if a level by doing system could work with Fallout's current amazing RPG elements, but really it can't and it shouldn't.
As we said, consider the trade-off with immersion. You'll never get 100% immersion, so you just have to pack it filled with the immersion that's the most fun. People play games for entertainment too. I mean really, immersion is having to take a shit 8 hours after you ate some Mirelurk meat, and if you don't have toilet paper in your inventory, you receive the smelly ass active effect that gives you -5 charisma.
Whilst this may sound hilarious, it's really not that fun if you're playing the game. Brushing your teeth is immersive, but it's also repetitive and boring. You have to balance out the mundane shit, pardon the pun, that goes under the pretense of immersion with actual fun, engaging gameplay.
Now when it comes to perks, we think that both a perk every level and a perk every second level can both work well. That being said, we are leaning more towards a perk every second level, and here is why. In Fallout 3 it was quite possible to become a god. However, in New Vegas, having less perk choices meant you had to choose your perks more carefully. This allowed for having to shape more unique characters, and this is why we like Fallout New Vegas' leveling system. It didn't make you an overpowered master of everything with so many attribute points.
And sometimes you could become a god in Fallout New Vegas, so definitely a perk every level would be too overpowered. Being able to get the Educated perk with all the levels of intense training by level 12 was incredibly fun for a playthrough in Fallout 3. However, it was fun in the way that using God mode with unlimited holy frag grenades is fun.
Ultimately, however, if they did give you a perk every level, we wouldn't be overly fussed. New perks should be also introduced that are highly unique but also effective.
For example, the Living Anatomy perk was cool for a scientist character, and it should be there for people who want it. However, there should also be perks that, for example, allow you to reprogram enemy robots and turrets to clean up enemies for you.
And with that important point, we've gone through what we believe is the ideal Fallout 4. It's also important to say that even if all these ideas aren't implemented into Fallout 4, Bethesda will surely make it a great game anyway.
If you've watched it all the way till now, thank you very much, and we hope to see your comments below regarding your ideas about Fallout 4 and your thoughts on this video. Did you love it? Did we leave something out? Tell us in the comments, we read through all of them, and be sure to subscribe for upcoming Fallout 4 discussion. When the game actually comes out, we'll be making heaps of Fallout builds and guides.
We also make discussion videos on Elder Scrolls 6, which we made an ideal video for. And of course, you probably know, we make Skyrim and Fallout New Vegas character builds too.
Remember, if you want to go back and listen to a certain segment again, there are links in the description to take you there. And whilst you're chilling in the description box, check out our social media links and the channels of those who contributed to the video.
We'll be making ideal videos for other amazing games of the future, and finally, please share this video to help us out.
My name is Michael.
And I'm Scott. A special thanks to Camelworks, ESO, Grohlvanna, and Smike.
And we'll see you soon with more Fallout 4.